Hello and welcome to the Post Up Podcast. This is Cyrus Rogers.
This is Kaunda Chama.
So we've got a great episode lined up for you today. We're going to be talking about the race to the playoffs and what's happening in the Eastern Conference in particular, because there's a whole lot happening in the East. It is so tight. It is so competitive. These guys don't want to let up, and there's only a couple of spots left. So, it's going to go down to the wire.
Well, Cyrus, the first 5 spots have been taken.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
We've only got 3 because you only get 8 spots. So look, the first 5, number one, we knew it was going to be like that. Milwaukee Bucks have just been playing so well. Toronto Raptors also were hot on their heels. The 76ers have had a great season. The Indiana Pacers have had a surprisingly great season.
Despite
even
losing
after losing Victor
Oladipo.
Oladipo. And the Boston Celtics, well, that's another...
Underperformed by their
standards.
Expectations, yeah.
But look, they don't have home court, and that's just it.
I think the thing about what's happened in the East is just, the idea that, okay, LeBron's gone now, it's fair game. And it really looks as if people have just been pulling up their socks and doing what they need to do. And seeing the Bucks in the number 1 spot is just amazing. And I think that they are probably locked on for number 1 in the Eastern Conference overall, and will have home court all the way through the playoffs. But I think it's the fight below them, and I think let's talk about the teams ranging from 6th position to 10th. So who do we got?
Cyrus, on number 6 we have the Brooklyn Nets. I'm loving the Brooklyn Nets. Do you know why? Because last year, this time, I was laughing at the Brooklyn Nets.
So from laughing to loving, well, that's a good change.
Am I laughing now?
No,
Cyrus. And look, 18 points away from
18
the top.
games back from the top.
18 games back from the top. Look, it's better than what they did last season. That's what I'm saying. And they're in playoffs contention. That's what I love.
I guess this is the thing about it, though, is that when you look at the Brooklyn Nets, they're close to winning 40 games. This is something they haven't done for a long time.
For a very long time.
And I think that's testament to what's happening with Kenny Atkins, what's happening with the players there. He's given them a really good sense of competitiveness, of believing in themselves, and knowing that they can go out and do some stuff. So the Nets in 6th position at the moment is pretty good.
And Cyrus, let's talk about one of the reasons they're doing that.
Yeah.
This young man, D'Angelo Russell, left the Lakers with the sort of like under a dark cloud, if you will. Yeah. Things just didn't work out as the Lakers thought they would.
He was a number 2 pick.
Yeah, and it was surprisingly, we thought some people would have even called him a potential bust.
Well,
because of his struggles.
Okay, we'll get back into that whole bust, thing, because I tend to think people make their judgment calls way too early these days. It's absolute trash that somebody can be out there saying, no, this guy's a bust. He's what, 22?
Yep.
I mean, goodness gracious me.
But Cyrus, look, the thing is, it's how you come into the league. And I'll just take that as a quick sidebar. He comes in, they're thinking he's going to be the next Kobe. So they pile a whole bunch of expectations on him. Sometimes very unreasonable expectations, because everybody develops at their own pace.
Of course it's unreasonable expectations. Even Kobe wasn't Kobe when he came into the league.
Well, that's another subtopic for another podcast, because I think he was. But they're looking at phenoms like LeBron, they're looking at phenoms like even Jordan wasn't really Jordan.
These are once
when
in
he came in,
exactly.
Exactly. So I think that was the situation. Then there was the off-court stuff, of course, that affected the locker room. But moving right along, fast forward to this season. 20.9 points a game, 7 assists.
Yeah, and he leads the Nets in both of those. I mean, D'Angelo Russell is a great player. And there's something that Kenny Atkins has been doing at that team that's really quite remarkable, in the sense that, I think I called him Kenny Atkinson. But what he's doing well is that he's looking at trying to get the best out of players who've been discarded. It's something that D'Angelo Russell mentioned when people were talking about him becoming an all-star this season, and it was well deserved. But he said, Coach told us, we got to look at how we're playing in the league and how people have turned their backs on us and use that as a strength. And pretty much everybody in that Brooklyn Nets team is a team player first.
Yes.
So you look at the likes of Spencer Dinwiddie, you look at the likes of Joe Harris. These are guys who weren't necessarily knocking on a lot of teams' doors.
But no, I'd like to see more from Damari Carroll, though.
I know, without a doubt.
He's gone a bit quiet
but
recently.
But this is exactly it.
He was
even
on fire.
Even Damari Carroll, somebody who'd been playing really well at the Atlanta Hawks at one stage, and then just sort of went really ice cold. And this is the kind of platform where he says, look, you've got the ability to do what you do best. That's what I'll facilitate for you. So that's the Nets in 6th place. 7th spot, we've got the Detroit Pistons.
I love the Pistons. I know they've had their challenges, especially in the backcourt.
Yeah.
Frontcourt's good. They got one of my favorite big men. Blake Griffin.
Yeah.
And they've also got another one of my favorite big men, Andre Drummond. So they've got a solid front court, and I think with a lot of other pieces. But I think the reason why they're in 7th spot, and I think I would have expected them to finish somewhere up as high as 5, is because their backcourt is not really something I'm going to write to my mom about.
No, look, I mean, your mom likes to get those emails from you, especially the NBA ones.
Yes.
But I think the thing about them, though, right, is that the Detroit Pistons are a work in progress. For me, seeing them in the playoffs spots, I figured that they would get there because I have faith in Dwayne Casey and I love Blake Griffin, and I thought this is what would happen when Blake went to Motor City. But I think the thing about the Pistons is that they do need to develop a more streetwise backcourt and one that actually plays with a little bit more skill, because I don't think they're getting or maximizing what they have from the players that they had on the roster. Look at how well Reggie Bullock has played since going to the Los Angeles Lakers. Not to say he was playing badly when he was at the Pistons, but he could have been doing better. And I think this is where sometimes some players need a little bit more of a push, like Reggie Jackson.
He doesn't need a push. He needs to be like Toad or a winch. He needs a winch. He needs to
just extract all of these.
Cyrus, I think Reggie Jackson has got a lot of talent, but somehow it doesn't come out. And this leads me to think, Cyrus, and I'll put my head on the block to this. Andre Drummond's a superstar. Blake Griffin's a superstar. They need a superstar point guard to make this Detroit Pistons system work.
Well, I think I tend to agree with you on that. But I look at it this way, right? Because what is this? Sometimes a player who is under-regarded can become a star player. Look at Eric Bledsoe at the Milwaukee Bucks.
Let me give you a scenario here.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. Kemba Walker at the Detroit Pistons.
Well, as much as I'd love
can you
that,
imagine that?
I would
Can
love
you
it,
imagine
but the Pistons just can't get him. They don't have.
But if they had a Kemba Walker type point guard,
without a
the
question,
Pistons would be a different
without
team.
a question. And I think this is also where the unfortunate situation they find themselves in, because they're not bad enough to be, one of the guys who are doing, like
Getting
in the
lottery
lottery and hoping for the best in whatever happens with the draft. But then they're also not good enough to, or they don't have the cap space or the players to actually, use as pieces to try and get players. And it's a tough sell because they don't also have the cap space in terms of financing at the moment. It's just crazy where they find themselves.
Let's also give it real. It's not the sexiest market.
Well, that is one of the other things I was going to go to. It isn't all about the sleek looks, but I get you.
I mean, the uniforms look great. The arena looks fantastic.
The arena is one of the best in the NBA.
I'm not hearing Cyrus saying, let's go on holiday to Detroit.
Well, it's one of those things. But if you're with the right kind of players, why not? And I think this is where Detroit finds itself, because they've got a Blake Griffin who's playing well. They've got an Andre Drummond who's playing well.
Yep.
And Blake Griffin is leading the Pistons in points and assists. He's averaging 24.7 points a game, 5.5 assists a game. Then Andre Drummond cleaning up the glass as usual.
Absolutely. 15.4 rebounds per game is nothing to sneeze at.
No.
And even with the struggles and the back and forth he might have had with one Joel Embiid, he's still a big man to be reckoned
He
with.
definitely is, and I think he's the kind of player a lot of teams would love to have on their books. If only, it's just that he's a little old school. He's not one who's shooting the 3-ball as well.
No.
If they could somehow find some latent Brook Lopez abilities in him and have him shoot those threes, then they definitely have a different weapon on their hands. But that's the Pistons. They're like half a game back from the Nets, so they sit in 7th. But the Orlando Magic are a full game back from the Nets, who are 6th. The Magic are in 8th. They are a half a game behind the Pistons, and a half a game, in fact, a game and a half ahead of the Miami Heat. And so, the Orlando Magic are a team that I like. You like them more than me.
Cyrus, I would like us to insert a sound clip from the first poster podcast we did at the beginning of the year, where I was laughed at by saying, I'm going to like watching the Orlando Magic and they might make it to the playoffs, and hoo-hoos and ha-has.
Yeah, there was a lot of cackling and giggling.
But it's fine. They've worked hard. They've had their injury issues. They haven't performed according to what I expected. To be honest with you, I thought maybe they would push for a 7th spot, even a 6th spot, because I didn't really expect the Brooklyn Nets to do this well.
It's unreal that you thought the Magic would do that well. Look, because I just don't see it. I don't see it in the players that they've had. And I think that's the thing. As much as we love our African players that are on that team, you know, Ivan Fournier, even Mobamba, it just didn't seem like the kind of team who would be pushing high to me.
Look, first of all, they have one of the best big men, regardless of conference, in the league, in Nikola Vucevic.
Yes, all-star Nikola Vucevic.
All-star Nikola Vucevic, putting up 20.8 points per game, 12.1 rebounds per game, leading the Magic in both statistical categories, right? Just him as a presence is great.
Yeah.
You know, Ivan Fournier is a great guard as well.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
They have one almost slam dunk champion in Aaron Gordon, who plays well in the paint. He hasn't got the best long range shot, but you know his mid range shot isn't bad. He plays well in the paint. He's
got a lot to work on though. Yeah, but I do like him.
Dunk and you know, I just thought they could be one of those dark horses. To me, that's why I was supporting them.
That's why you sort of backed them.
And then it surprised me, because to tell you the honest truth, I never expected the Brooklyn Nets to play this well. And I think the fact that the Brooklyn Nets have played this well has affected teams such as the Orlando Magic and the Miami Heat. Because if you look at how hard they've pushed, that position I would have given to either the Heat or the Magic.
I can totally get behind that, because in essence, I suppose when you look at the Eastern Conference and you look at that top five, it pretty much is one of those where you can mix any of them around, and people would have said, yeah, this would probably be the top five in the East anyway, in terms of the Bucks, Raptors, Sixers, Pacers, and Celtics. And then everybody else behind them can just fill in the gaps where need be. But I think the thing I like about the Magic, and what I see as a trend here, is that you have to have a player who's averaging about 20, 25 points a game in order to try and propel you, to get you up into the playoff spots. And if you don't necessarily have that, you've got to be able to share the load amongst some of the players that you have in the team. And the Magic have actually done well by working off the likes of Vucevic, who, I mean, his 20 points per game that's a big number.
It's actually almost 21 points if you look at 0.8. Exactly. I always say if you round it off, that's almost 21 points a game.
Plus you're adding the rebounding, so this is a double-double that you're getting from somebody who's really, really important to their system. And the Magic, who knows, they could just get there. But outside of the playoff spots at the moment, and this is what's been interesting, because when the Magic beat the Heat just the other night,
it was a swap.
Things changed. They jumped over the Heat. They showed them they're actually here to try and claim that 8th spot. And the Heat, who were the incumbents, they were the ones who had that 8th spot, just seemed to fall off a little bit. And you've always been talking about how nice it would be for Dwayne Wade to make it into the playoffs for the final time.
Absolutely, Cyrus. You know, to tell you the honest truth, as much as I've been backing the Magic, right, I've also been on the fence with the Miami Heat, because I like Dwayne Wade. I think he's one of the greatest guys we ever had play this game. I mean, there's a reason he was called Flash. He won championships for this franchise. And I think it'll be a great send-off. First of all, the way him and Dirk were put into the All-Star game as, you know, special guests, if you will. Now he's having his last dance, and imagine if his last dance included an appearance in the postseason. You know, I mean, even if he doesn't make it, he'll probably go on holiday with LeBron. You know,
missing a couple of guys.
You know, because Melo probably won't play another game this season.
Well, so, he ain't going anywhere.
So there's Melo, there's
LeBron, and D-Wade.
And there's D-Wade. So they've got most of the crew.
They'll be cheering on Chris Paul.
You know, they've got most of the crew right there. So, but I really love the Miami Heat. Maybe to get a couple of wins in. You know, sorry, Orlando Magic. If they take that spot, I won't take it that personal. But it'd be a great way to send him off. Can you imagine that final All-Star jersey? Who he will swap it with? I don't know. Maybe with somebody from Toronto. You know, maybe Serge Ibaka. You never know.
You never know.
So, I'd really love them to make that 8th spot. But if they make the 8th spot, obviously they'll play the Milwaukee Bucks. And,
at present. And look, it's not going to be easy whoever they face. I think this is the thing about the Miami Heat for me. They're very well coached. I mean, Eric Spoelstra has shown his coaching chops time and again, because they don't really have much in Miami.
And what a consummate professional, Cyrus. He was here for the Africa game.
Oh, yeah.
The most recent Africa game, and I had time to sit down and just have a chat with him. You know, we were not even talking, Miami Heat specifics. We're just talking about sports development, talent on the African continent. He is such a great guy to sit down.
Yeah, Spoelstra really is.
You can tell this is a professional. You're dealing with a professional, and I think he's done great for this franchise.
Because he was here 2017, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that was a really great person to be around, because always willing to give you, the time as a journalist, but also he's got such a great basketball brain about him. I mean, there's no question that this man knows what he's doing. And you look at the way that he's worked with some of the greats before, like with LeBron
James.
Obviously currently with D Wade and Chris Bosh, they had a great team, Ray Allen. And I think the thing about Spoelstra is he's gotten the most out of some of the players that he's had. Guys that he's also given the mantle to, like Hassan Whiteside, who leads the Heat in rebounding with 11.5 rebounds a game.
Yeah.
He wasn't really one of those players that anybody had their eyes on, but with the right kind of work and the right kind of coaching, he's become an all-star. He's just become one of the great big men in the league.
Oh, yeah.
And then leading them in points per game is Josh Richardson.
Sort had a quiet start to the season, but as things go, he's caught some fire, and I'm glad to see him putting up 16.7 points a game. That's nothing to sneeze at. I'd really like to see him push it into the 20s. If you're making double figures, just push the double figures.
But I think Richardson's got the ability to do that. But he's also one of those where you start wondering about whether or not he's a starter. Is he more suited to come off the bench more regularly? And he could be like a Lou Williams. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if that's who he sort of modeled his game around going forward.
Now that you mentioned that, Cyrus, I see the similarities
There's a bit of a similarity,
in body movement and that stroke on the shot.
No, so I think, but this is the thing about the Heat, is that they need to get more from Goran Dragic, who really hasn't been at his best, and injuries have been, one of the main reasons behind that. Dwayne Wade has just been phenomenal this season. He's been putting up some really good numbers.
We talk about the Orlando Magic, we've spoken about the Miami Heat, but look, also creeping up and might just surprise people and grab that 8th spot, Charlotte's very own Hornets.
Yeah, and they've been playing really well. They've also fallen off. They were so close, and then they lost a couple of games in a row, and it just wasn't working. And I think the thing about the Charlotte Hornets, because they sit in the 10th spot right now, they're 2.5 games back from 8th spot, which is held by the Orlando Magic, and the Hornets have got some good talent. You mentioned Kemba Walker earlier.
Oh yes.
Kemba is phenomenal. Kemba is the kind of guard who should be courted by so many different NBA teams. And he's putting up 25.2 points a game. I mean, that is...
And almost 6 assists to go with that.
5.9 assists. This guy is really playing.
Look, Cyrus, I think this is the kind of point guard who's definitely gonna get offers when he's eligible to entertain them. But at the moment, I'm glad he's doing great things at the Hornets. They're the kind of team that need this kind of
without a
point guard. I mean, they got one of our big men from Africa, in Bismarck Biombo,
who leads them in blocks this season.
He once played for them when they were the Bobcats.
Yeah.
Now when they became the Hornets, he's gone back again. One of our favorite guards again, Tony Parker, went there to play. Yeah. His final season, which might be his final season.
Yeah, I think he said this might be the last one.
Jeremy Lamb playing there, doing some great things.
They've got decent players.
Some decent players, but I think they needed to push a little harder.
Let's not forget about our Cameroonian French star player who's also there, Nicolas Batum.
Also a great guy.
Yeah, a fantastic guy to be around, and he's also good in the locker room. They've got the right kind of players there. They just haven't been as consistent as they should be, and that's been a problem with the Charlotte Hornets for however long we can think of. They need a playoff run at some point.
Absolutely. I mean, look, Cyrus, it's a battle, I think, between the Orlando Magic, Miami Heat, and Charlotte Hornets. Obviously, one of them is going to grab that 8th spot. Right now, it's looking as if it's a 1-2 battle between the Magic and the Heat. But if the Charlotte can pull off a couple of surprises, they might just make it there. And it'll be great for them to see a postseason. It won't be a very lengthy run because they will have to face
whoever
Giannis and the Bucks.
But what's beautiful about where we are in the East right now is that if you look at it, right, from 6th spot to 10th spot, there is a 2.5 game difference.
Which means things can juggle at any point.
It can change drastically within the last couple of games of the season. And I think that as obviously we count down to the end of the season, there's going to be a couple of games where you're like, okay, fine, there's no more chance for the Hornets or there's no more chance for the Heat, but it's got to go down to possibly the last game of the season where people are playing to try and get into the postseason. And then you start seeing who wants to be on holiday and who wants to try and make a name for themselves.
Play a couple of more games. Cyrus, and I think that's what makes this league so exciting.
Yeah.
Because you get to points like that whereby, like, okay, it's who wants it more.
Without question. Without question. And I think that's what's beautiful about the Eastern Conference right now, because nobody is really a given. Everybody thought, the Boston Celtics will just run away with this. Boston Celtics. Lo and behold, they're not even in the top 3.
Whew. Cyrus, you know those people you're talking about?
Yeah.
I'm one of them.
I think we were both one of them. and what's just been beautiful is to see exactly the transition so many teams have made. Because with the Raptors getting like a Kawhi Leonard, they've been playing really good basketball, even despite getting rid of Dwayne Casey. And then you see Mike Budenholzer and the Bucks doing what they have to do. And it is just awesome.
No, it's been
awesome.
great. I think I can't wait to continue watching these games in the run-up to the playoffs. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, we'll be covering.
There'll be a couple of sleepless nights for me, but I would.
I think for pretty much anybody in the sort of rest of the hemisphere, like you move out of the States and people are starting to count how many hours sleep they're gonna miss.
Yeah, but it's worth it. Cyrus, this is what we do. This is what we love.
Yeah, exactly.
But before we go, one of your favorite topics?
No, we got to. In fact, we're squeezing this one in here because it's one of those that I think we got to keep talking about as we lead to the end of the season, and that's the Rookie of the Year candidates. Because there's been so much written about these guys, and I think we've got to talk about 2 in particular: Trae Young from the Atlanta Hawks and Luka Doncic from the Dallas Mavericks.
Okay, Cyrus,
they've been just so good.
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Has Trae Young done enough to eclipse one Luka Doncic?
No. And I say this from minute one, from when Luka got the ball. If there's one thing that you gotta, and European listeners to the podcast will understand this, don't underestimate the EuroLeague. People are looking at the EuroLeague like it's some backwater league somewhere where you just go to stay fit. That isn't the case. This is high-level basketball. People are playing at a high level. They want to go out there and show their skills and potentially get gigs in the NBA, like Luka Doncic has done. But Luka Doncic didn't just play in the EuroLeague. Luka Doncic has been named as the best player in the EuroLeague before he hit the age of 20. Before he even hit the age of 19.
Cyrus, at first I thought you were going to say, don't underestimate the Euro step.
Oh, you see, this is how it goes. Just because he can do it.
Euro step. But everything you say, Cyrus, I agree with. First of all, he's a European champion.
Yeah.
He's an MVP in that same European league. And we've seen guys that have played in the Gasol brothers have played in that league, and you can see the quality of that play. If you look at Dirk Nowitzki, one of the legends, he's from Germany, so he's got connections to that league, and he plays with players from that league when he's playing.
There's so many different players. Dennis Schroeder's also played a little bit, playing in Europe, not necessarily in the EuroLeague.
Yeah.
But you see, the thing is, and it's also about fundamentals, knowing how to play the game the right way. And I think this is also where people get caught up in the hype between, they're fundamentals-based players versus us skilled players in the US. It's really just about eyeballs on the basketball. That if people were watching the EuroLeague in the States, they'd see Doncic playing night in, night out, doing what he's been doing now in the NBA at a grown man level. Because we forget that what happens in the NCAA and in college basketball is that they're playing good basketball. It's fantastic as the game goes, but they're not playing against grown men.
Absolutely.
Right? They're not playing against grown men. The 3-point line is a little further back, or a little further in. The rims are a little lower. It almost feels like, okay, it's kids' ball. I mean, I'm not trying to disrespect him. Not trying to disrespect
Zion
him at all.
Williamson, I'd like to give you Cyrus's phone number.
But this is the thing about it. But that's why Zion stands out, because Zion is a grown man.
Absolutely.
Right? Zion is seen as a grown man. So the whole thing about it is that I think the EuroLeague is a great league to be in when you're looking at it in terms of what you want to see from your players executing well. Now, having said all that, I can see why people are talking about Trae Young. Because I love Trae Young. I think Trae Young, and I hate the Steph comparisons, but they're so easy to make because of their build, they're a bit slight, not necessarily, the biggest guys, but they're also, bullseye shooters. These guys are shooting from anywhere in the court. But the other thing that is also a great comparison is that they have good handles and the ability to assist.
I was about to say that, Cyrus, that a lot of people look at Steph Curry and Trae Young and say, they're good bullseye shooters. They can shoot from anywhere on the court.
Yeah.
But you forget all the times that these guys are driving to the hoop.
Yep.
These guys have good handles for days.
They really do.
Like if you watch Steph Curry, the day that he doesn't want to shoot and he wants to show you that he can drive to the rim, he does it effortlessly.
He'll do it.
And I'm seeing the same kind of traits in Trae Young.
Yes.
And this young man, I think, has got a great future. He might not win the Rookie of the Year this season, but I've got a feeling this is the kind of youngster that can one day win most most improved player. This is the kind of youngster that can push for the MVP accolade. This kid,
there's a lot. His future's bright.
Potential. His future's definitely
So,
bright.
who are you backing for Rookie of the Year?
I gotta go with Luka Doncic. Cyrus, everything, sometimes, although they say don't always go with the crowd, but everything about this young man. And I wish I had the step back that Luka had. It's
the confidence.
It looks so effortless.
It's ridiculous.
Step back, I'm releasing.
Even his
Step back, I'm
dunking,
releasing.
late game shooting.
Oh, my word.
The chops on this kid. When you look at it, I mean, when you were 20, do you think you could have handled any of the pressure that this guy's been under?
Yes.
Because he's under a spotlight. You say this now. But, we'll shine those lights on you.
Was it the pressure to find the best party? What pressure are we talking about here, Cyrus?
I'm talking about millions of eyes on you, expectation being high, you getting paid loads of money to try and play this game you love, and then late in the game you got to take that shot to win the game for your team. I don't know, Kaunda.
There are too many moving pieces, Cyrus, but I'm going with yes.
Back yourself, Sir Kaunda. But I think the thing is, and we've got to give some honorable mentions to a few of the other rookies who've really done well. I think Doncic has done enough from doing the triple-double stuff, from winning games late, from scoring and averaging over 20 points a game.
Yeah.
There is so much this guy does right that I don't see how Trae Young unseats him as the favorite. And it's nice to have somebody up there because this, to me, is basically the Ben Simmons, Donovan Mitchell race from last season.
Oh, absolutely.
Where it was like, but Ben
without
Simmons,
the questions about what is a real rookie.
Exactly.
He's a real rookie.
Exactly. But having said that, the question could still be, raised in the sense that what is a real
Is
rookie?
Doncic really a rookie?
Because Doncic has been playing.
Before.
He's been playing
Yeah,
pro.
but he's a rookie in the league.
And that's why Ben Simmons is considered a rookie in his first season in the NBA.
Absolutely.
But honorable mentions got to go out to DeAndre Ayton, the number one pick from this year, who's just been really good, quietly good.
Quietly good. And I think him playing along at the Suns, first of all, makes him able to grow because there's not really that much focus on the Suns. So it's a small enough market for him to spread his wings and playing alongside Devin Booker as well.
Yeah.
Who's a great guard and feeding him in the paint. It's just been fantastic, and he's been rebounding well. This kid, he's been up against some mature centers and held his own.
Chops,
and it's fantastic.
I love DeAndre Ayton. And, he's also got Nigerian links, so we're always gonna love you, DeAndre.
Always gonna back him up.
And then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I mean, he's been so good at the Clippers. One of the teams that's clinched a playoff place, and they've got a rookie who's been playing a lot of basketball for them.
He has been playing. And I always say this every season about one player. Now this is another player who's been playing like he's been playing like he's been here before.
Yeah.
So, you can tell he's a youngster by the way he looks. He's a small kid, but the way his confidence, his level of confidence, how he attacks the board, how he rebounds, how he moves on the court. It's like, kid, have you been here before? Are you sure you're a rookie?
And isn't that why Patrick Beverly said, hey, I kept my mouth shut, but why aren't we talking about Shai?
Absolutely.
Why aren't we talking about Shai as being a Rookie of the Year candidate? And we should have been, but he ain't Luka Doncic or Trae Young.
No.
And that's just the problem for him at the moment.
But he's a great player.
No, without a question. Then Marvin Bagley III from the Sacramento Kings.
Bagley III.
Wow.
I am so glad he's at the Sacramento Kings because of the way he plays. He fits very well with the
system,
and the way they play that system and how the speed and pace at which the Sacramento Kings play, and he is that kind of a player. And it was great that they picked him up. And I think again, future prospects very bright for Marvin Bagley III, and I think he's with the right squad. And I think if he stays with this team long term, he'll do great things.
I do agree with you. I think that the Kings are a couple of players away from being very good regularly. I don't see them making the playoffs this season. They're just too far behind the 8th seeded San Antonio Spurs with too much ground to make up. And I think it's just one of those things where you realize the Kings have actually made such a jump from where they've been before to actually being really competitive and a tough team to beat. But it's been a great podcast.
Oh, yes. We've covered a lot of great stuff. Guys, keep listening. Keep commenting, keep liking. We love it when we get some feedback from guys that are listening. Even if you don't understand phrases like gymming, let us know. We'll hit you back. Because it's a very South African or African thing, you know.
Yeah, that is it.
Going to gym is gymming.
So to all of you that have been listening, make sure you comment on this podcast and follow us at Post Up Podcast on Instagram and on Twitter at Post Up Podcast. We love hearing from you. So till next time, it's bye-bye.
Peace.